Welcome, traveler. The road ahead is dark. The unknown awaits. Let's step into the world of mystery, where every shadow hides a story. The town of Willow Creek had always been peaceful, the kind of place where doors stayed unlocked. That changed in the summer of 2017, when the McAllister house became the center of something no one could explain. For years, it had been abandoned after Eleanor McAllister passed away. People ignored it until the lights started flickering at night. Sometimes it was just one room. Other times the whole house pulsed like a beacon. No one lived there, but something inside was moving. One night, Carter Hayes was walking home from work when he saw a shadow in the upstairs window. It was quick, jerky, gone before he could focus. His breath caught. He pulled out his phone to take a picture, but before he could, the shadow moved again, this time closer to the glass. The streetlight flickered, the air felt colder, and Carter ran without looking back. The next day, the rumors started. Some said it was squatters, others swore it was Eleanor herself. A group of teens decided to investigate. They filmed themselves pushing open the front door. It was unlocked. The video showed dust-covered furniture, peeling floral wallpaper, a frozen grandfather clock. They wandered upstairs, their flashlights cutting through the dark. Then came the whisper, soft, raspy, from nowhere. The camera jerked as they spun around, shining lights into empty corners. The whisper came again. Closer, the screen cut to black. The next morning, two of the teens refused to talk. The third, Brandon, said something had touched him. Cold fingers brushed his neck. When he turned, a figure stood in the shadows, barely visible. His friends swore they hadn't seen it, but Brandon insisted. A week later, he vanished. His parents thought he ran away, but his friends knew better. Police searched the house, found nothing. The case closed, but the lights still flickered, and people still saw something in the upstairs window. A week after Brandon vanished, his friends tried to move on. The police searched the McAllister house, found no sign of him, and labeled it a runaway case. But those who knew Brandon didn't believe it. His best friend, Jake, swore Brandon wouldn't just leave without telling anyone. His girlfriend, Emily, started having nightmares, dreams where she saw him standing at the McAllister house window, mouth moving, but no sound coming out. She woke up gasping, unable to shake the feeling. One night, Jake got a text from Brandon's number, 3 words, "Help me, basement." His heart pounded. The number had been disconnected after Brandon's disappearance. He showed Emily the message, but before they could reply, the text disappeared, vanished from the conversation like it had never been sent. That night, neither of them slept. The next day, Jake convinced Emily they had to go back to the house. If Brandon was there, they couldn't ignore it. They waited until midnight, armed with flashlights and a crowbar. They crept up the steps. The door, like before, was unlocked. The air inside was stale, thick with dust. The grandfather clock was still frozen in time. The stairs groaned under their weight as they made their way to the basement door. It was shut tight. Jake hesitated, then forced it open. A wave of damp, cold air hit them. Emily shivered. Something about the darkness beyond felt wrong. The basement was deeper than expected. The stone walls covered in something dark, too thick to be dust. The light from their flashlights barely cut through the heavy gloom. As they stepped forward, Emily gasped. In the farthest corner, something was moving. A figure hunched over, its breathing ragged. It looked like Brandon, same hoodie, same shoes. But when he turned toward them, his face was wrong. His eyes were too wide, his mouth stretched into a silent scream. Jake grabbed Emily's wrist and yanked her back. The thing that looked like Brandon twitched, jerking toward them in uneven, unnatural movements. It was fast, too fast. They barely made it up the stairs before slamming the door shut. A heavy bang shook the wood. Something clawed at it from the other side. They ran, bursting out of the house, lungs burning. Behind them, the upstairs window flickered with light, and for a split second, they saw it standing there, watching. The next morning, Jake and Emily tried to convince themselves it was a nightmare, but the scratches on the basement door, the bruises on Emily's wrist, and the way the air still felt heavy in their lungs told them otherwise. Something was in that house, something that wore Brandon's face, but wasn't him. Emily wanted to go to the police, but what would they say? That a twisted version of their friend was living in a basement. They knew no one would believe them. That night, Emily woke to the sound of tapping at her window. She lived on the second floor. Her heart pounded as she turned over in bed, staring at the glass. The tapping stopped. The street below was empty. Then her phone lit up. A message from Brandon's number. "Let me in." Her breath hitched. Hands shaking, she typed back, "You're not Brandon." 3 dots appeared. Then a reply, "Come see." A shadow moved outside. Emily screamed. By the time her parents rushed in, it was gone. Jake dialed 911, but as the phone rang, another message came through. This time, it wasn't from Brandon's number. It was Emily's. Basement. His stomach dropped. He knew what he had to do. The police would never get there in time. If Emily was still alive, she didn't have long. He grabbed his flashlight, his crowbar, and drove straight to the McAllister house. The front door stood open, like it had been expecting him. His breath came in short gasps as he stepped inside. The house was silent, too silent. Even the air felt still, like it was holding its breath. Jake made his way to the basement door. This time it was already open. He hesitated, gripping the crowbar tighter, then took the first step down. The basement was darker than before. His flashlight flickered, barely cutting through the shadows. Emily. His voice was hoarse, swallowed by the heavy quiet. Then from the corner, he heard it, a whisper, soft, familiar. "Jake, help me." Jake's breath caught in his throat. Emily's voice, weak, trembling, came from the darkness ahead. His flashlight flickered again, barely illuminating the damp stone walls. He took a step forward, gripping the crowbar so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Emily?" he called again, voice shaking. No response, just the heavy silence pressing against his ears. Then, another whisper closer this time. "Please, help me." He swallowed hard, forcing his feet to move deeper into the basement. In the dim light, he saw her. Emily sat on the cold floor, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her hair was tangled, her clothes dirt-streaked. She looked up at him, eyes glassy with fear. Relief flooded through him as he rushed forward. "Emily, we have to go." He stopped. Something was wrong. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The words she had spoken just moments ago still echoed in his ears. But now, standing in front of her, he realized she hadn't spoken at all. Jake's stomach turned to ice. Slowly, he raised the flashlight, letting the beam trail along the wall behind her. Then he saw it. In the farthest corner, just beyond the reach of the light, something stood. Its body was twisted, its limbs too long. Its face, if it even had one, was shrouded in shadow. The whispering returned, but this time, it wasn't coming from Emily, it was coming from it. The thing shifted, And in that instant, Jake understood. The whispers had never belonged to Emily. The air grew thick, suffocating. The figure twitched, its head tilting unnaturally. As it stepped forward, Jake yanked Emily up, dragging her toward the stairs. "Run!" he gasped. Behind them, the thing let out a sound, a low, distorted echo of Emily's voice, mimicking her plea, "Please, help me." But this time, it was wrong. Too hollow, too stretched. They stumbled up the steps, the basement door slamming shut behind them. The house groaned, the lights flickered, and then silence. They didn't stop running until they reached Jake's car. He fumbled with the keys, hands shaking so hard he nearly dropped them. Emily sat beside him, staring ahead, silent. As the engine roared to life, Jake stole a glance at her. "Emily?" She turned slowly, eyes dark, unreadable. A smile curled at the edges of her lips. Too wide, too sharp. She leaned in, whispering, "You should have left me there." And as they drove away, the McAllister house stood quiet, watching, waiting. A reminder to subscribe if you like such supernatural stories. The Black-Eyed Children of Ravenwood. The night was cold in Ravenwood, a sleepy town tucked between dense forests. Adam Carter walked home alone from his shift at the diner, the distant hoot of an owl echoing through the empty streets. Then he saw them. Two children stood in the middle of the road, barely visible under the dim streetlight. A boy and a girl, no older than 10, their faces cast in shadow. Their clothes were outdated, ragged. Adam frowned. "Hey kids, you lost?" Silence. Then the girl lifted her face. Her eyes were pitch black. Adam stumbled back. The boy stepped forward. "Please," he said, voice hollow, "let us in." A sudden, overwhelming sense of dread washed over Adam. His body screamed to run, but he couldn't move. The girl reached for him, and the streetlight flickered out. Nick tapped the wheel of the car as they pulled into Ravenwood, the town looking like something out of an old postcard. Luke sat beside him, flipping through a local news site. "So," Nick said, "what exactly are we dealing with?" Luke sighed. A couple of reports of people going missing. But the weird part, the survivors all mentioned kids, black-eyed kids. Nick raised an eyebrow. "Creepy ghost kids. Hate those." Luke smirked. "I know. That's why I picked this one." Nick rolled his eyes. "All right, let's find someone who's actually seen them." Adam Carter was still shaken when the brothers found him at the diner. His hands trembled as he stirred his coffee. "They weren't normal," Adam muttered. "They looked like kids, but they weren't." Luke leaned in. "What happened after the light went out?" Adam swallowed hard. "I don't know. 1 second they were there. The next, I woke up in my house. No idea how I got there, but I can feel them, like they're watching." Nick glanced at Luke. "Sounds like more than ghosts." Adam nodded. "Last night, I saw them outside my window, just standing there, waiting." Luke frowned. "What happens when you let them in?" Adam's face went pale. "Nobody knows. Because those people, they don't come back." The wind howled as the brothers parked near the woods where the children had last been seen. The town was eerily quiet, not a single light on in the houses. Luke checked his shotgun. Salt rounds, iron, holy water. "Think any of this will work?" Nick shrugged. "Guess we'll find out." A rustling in the trees made them freeze. Then, soft footsteps. A child's voice whispered, Please, let us in. Luke turned, gun raised. The black-eyed kids stood at the tree line, grinning. More of them, at least 10, emerging from the shadows. Okay, that's a lot, Nick muttered. One of the children stepped closer. You can't stop us, it said. We belong here now. The salt round hit the boy square in the chest. He staggered but didn't fall. Nick cursed. That should have done something. The kids moved in unison, their hollow voices chanting. The ground beneath the brothers cracked open, dark mist seeping out. A figure rose from the earth, tall, skeletal, wrapped in black. Luke's breath hitched. But Derodia, the creature lifted a clawed hand. The children screamed in unison. The air grew thick with shadows. Nick grabbed his flask of holy water and threw it. The creature shrieked as the water sizzled against its flesh, but it didn't fall. Luke flipped through his journal, eyes scanning frantically. They're not ghosts. There's something older tied to this place. Nick dodged as a child lunged at him, its black eyes wide with hunger. Any ideas on how to send them back? Luke's eyes widened. The land. They were summoned here. We have to break the ritual that keeps them tied. Nick smirked. So we just have to destroy something old and creepy. Love it. The brothers ran for the town square, where an old stone stood at the center. Symbols were etched into its surface, glowing faintly. Luke grabbed a crowbar. This is the thinker. Break it, and they go back. Nick turned. The black-eyed children were closing in, their whispers turning to screams. The creature loomed behind them, its shadow stretching over the town. Luke swung. The stone cracked. The children wailed. Their bodies flickered, distorting. Nick pulled out a shotgun, covering fire. He shot at the advancing figures, forcing them back. Luke struck again. The stone shattered. A shockwave blasted through the town. The creature let out a final, piercing shriek before collapsing into dust. The children vanished, their forms dissolving into the wind. Silence. Luke panted. Well, that was horrifying. Nick dusted himself off. Yep, let's never do this again. The next morning, the town felt lighter. The oppressive air was gone. Adam Carter approached the brothers outside the diner, eyes filled with gratitude. They're gone, Adam said. Whatever you did, thank you. Luke waved him off. Just another day at the office. Nick grinned. Yeah, speaking of, let's get out of here before someone asks us to explain. They climbed into the car, the engine roaring to life. Luke sighed. Okay, next time, let's do a simple salt and burn. Nick smirked. Yeah, let's see how long that lasts. They drove off. Another town saved. Another road ahead. The end. The Hollow Man of Blackridge. The storm raged over Blackridge, a small town nestled between rolling hills and endless farmland. Thunder cracked as Lydia Miller drove home from her late shift, windshield wipers struggling against the rain. The radio fizzled with static before cutting out completely. A figure stood in the road ahead. She slammed on the brakes, heart pounding. A tall man loomed in the darkness, soaked from the rain, unmoving. His clothes were old, tattered, his face hidden beneath the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat. Lydia rolled down her window, just a crack. Sir, you okay? Silence. Then he lifted his head. There was nothing. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin. The Hollow Man raised a hand. The world around Lydia twisted. Her vision blurred. Her breath caught in her throat. She screamed. The next morning, Luke tapped away at his laptop while Nick sipped coffee at the diner, flipping through a newspaper. "So get this," Luke said, eyes scanning the screen. "3 people have gone missing in Blackridge this month. Same pattern, driving alone, stormy night, vanish without a trace." Nick smirked. "Sounds like our kind of problem." Luke nodded. "Best part, witnesses describe seeing a faceless man in a hat just before it happens." Nick set his coffee down. "Well, that's nightmare fuel." "Yep." Nick sighed, tossing some cash on the table. "All right, let's find someone who's actually seen this thing and figure out what the hell we're dealing with." Lydia Miller sat in her living room, hands shaking around a cup of tea. "You saw him?" Luke asked gently. Lydia nodded. "He was just standing there, but when he looked at me," she swallowed hard, "it felt like my mind was unraveling." Nick leaned forward. "What happened next?" Lydia hesitated. "I don't know. One second I was in my car. The next, I woke up in my driveway. But I lost time, hours, and since then, I feel like he's still watching me." Luke exchanged a look with Nick. "You're not crazy," Luke assured her. "Something's attached to this town." Nick stood. "We need to find out what." The brothers drove out to the farmland, where the Hollow Man had last been seen. The storm had rolled in again, wind howling through the trees. Nick adjusted his shotgun. "All right, let's see if he wants to show up." The world grew unnaturally silent. The temperature dropped. Then footsteps. The Hollow Man stepped from the mist, his head tilting as he faced them. The moment Nick looked at him, a crushing pressure filled his skull. His vision blurred. His heartbeat slowed. Luke grabbed him, yanking him away. "Don't look at him." Nick gasped, shaking his head clear. "Noted." The Hollow Man raised his hand, and the wind screamed around them. The world warped, their bodies feeling stretched, pulled. Luke reached into his bag, fumbling for a charm. He threw it, and the Hollow Man recoiled, retreating into the darkness. Nick panted. Well, he didn't like that. Luke exhaled. "Means it's tied to something. We just need to figure out what." The library smelled like dust and old paper as Luke flipped through historical records. Nick leaned on the desk, half bored. "Got something," Luke muttered. "There was a man named Silas Crane, lived here in the 1800s, accused of witchcraft. They say he made a deal with something unnatural. The town lynched him in a storm, just like this one." Nick raised an eyebrow. "So he comes back when it rains. Spooky. How do we stop him?" The rain poured as they stood in the old cemetery, shovels digging into the earth. The storm raged overhead, thunder cracking like a warning. Nick wiped sweat from his brow. "You sure he's down here?" Luke grunted. "Records say he was buried unmarked. Should be." His shovel hit something solid. Here. A gust of wind howled through the trees. The Hollow Man emerged from the shadows, moving faster now, angrier. Nick grabbed his shotgun. "All right, round 2. The Hollow Man raised his hand. The air warped, reality bending. Luke struck a match and dropped it into the grave. The fire roared to life. The Hollow Man let out an unearthly scream. His body flickering, distorting, he lunged and vanished. Silence fell. Nick exhaled. Damn, that was intense. Luke dusted off his hands. "Yeah, let's never do this in a storm again." The next morning, Lydia called them, voice lighter. "He's gone," she said. "I can feel it." Nick grinned. "All in a day's work." Luke grabbed the keys, ready to hit the road. Nick stretched. "Yeah, but next time, let's pick a job that doesn't involve getting our brains scrambled." Luke smirked. No promises. The car roared to life. Another case closed. Another road ahead. The end. Black Hollow was a mining town that had seen better days. Most people left years ago, but the few who remained still whispered about the abandoned tunnels. Late one night, Mark Turner, a local worker, staggered home after a few drinks. The quickest route was past the old mining site, a place everyone avoided after dark. But Mark wasn't superstitious. He whistled as he walked past rusted carts and collapsed shafts. Then the air changed. It thickened, pressing against his chest. Like a heavy weight, a strange chill ran through him. The sound of shuffling feet echoed from the entrance of the mine. "Hello," he called. No answer. Then a whisper, low and rasping. Mark turned, heart pounding. A shadow darted behind a wooden beam. "Who's there?" he demanded, stepping closer. Suddenly, a skeletal hand shot out from the darkness, grabbing his arm. Mark screamed, but before he could run, the ground beneath him gave way. He was swallowed by the mine, his final scream lost in the night. Miles away, in a roadside diner, Nick and Luke Carter sat in their usual booth. Nick, the older brother, tore into a plate of pancakes, while Luke nursed a cup of coffee, scrolling through his phone. The two had been on the road for weeks, bouncing from one case to the next. "You ever think about settling down?" Luke asked absently. Nick smirked. "Yeah, sure. Right after I finish this stack of pancakes, and our job magically does itself." Luke shook his head and tapped his screen. "Check this out. Guy named Mark Turner went missing in Black Hollow last night. Witnesses say he was ranting about something grabbing him before he disappeared near the old mines." Nick raised an eyebrow. "Haunted mine. Classic." He took another bite. "Think it's legit. Locals say the place is cursed." Luke said, "People claim to hear voices in the tunnels. Some say the missing miners from a cave-in over 100 years ago never really left." Nick wiped his mouth. "All right, creepy mine, possible ghost miners, and a guy who vanished into thin air. Sounds like our kind of thing." He threw a few bills on the table. "Let's roll." Nick and Luke arrived in Black Hollow by noon. The town had the eerie stillness of a place long past its prime. Faded storefronts, a gas station with only one working pump, and a handful of wary locals watching from their porches. They headed straight for the bar. Places like this, people talked. Inside, they found Jake Turner, Mark's brother, nursing a whiskey at the counter. Luke took the lead, flashing a fake FBI badge. "Jake Turner, we're looking into your brother's disappearance." Jake scoffed. "You guys are late. Cops didn't do a damn thing. Mark's gone. That mine swallowed him whole." Nick leaned against the bar. "You think something took him?" Jake hesitated. His fingers tightened around the glass. "He called me before he disappeared. Said he wasn't alone, that something was watching him." He exhaled sharply. "You ever hear breathing when no one's there? Like someone standing right behind you?" Nick and Luke exchanged a glance. "Yeah," Nick said. "We've heard it before." Jake swallowed hard. "Then you know this town's not normal." That night, the brothers scouted the mine entrance. The rusted gate had been forced open. A cold wind whispered from the tunnels, carrying the faintest sound of metal scraping against stone. Then in the distance came a sound neither of them wanted to hear. A voice, weak, desperate. "Help me." It was Mark, or at least it sounded like him. Nick pulled out a flashlight, its beam cutting through the thick darkness of the mine entrance. "That's definitely a trap," he muttered. Luke nodded. Yep, let's walk right into it. They stepped inside, the air immediately colder, the mine stretched deep, with collapsed beams and rusted tracks running along the floor. The voice called again, weaker this time. Please, help me. Luke ran a hand along the wall, scraping dust away from old carvings. This mine had a collapse in 1896. 12 miners were trapped inside. They were never found. Nick glanced around. Well, I think we found them. As if on cue, the air grew thick with whispers. Shadows flickered at the edge of their vision. A figure emerged, a gaunt, hollow-eyed spectre in tattered mining gear. More followed, their faces twisted with agony. Luke grabbed his salt rounds. Classic, vengeful spirits. Nick fired the first shot. The nearest ghost shrieked and evaporated, but more surged forward. The brothers backed up, weapons ready. We can't fight all of them, Luke shouted. We need to lay them to rest. Nick pulled out a flask of oil to then re-salt and burn their remains. The brothers sprinted deeper, following the source of the whispers. At the far end of the mine, they found it, an old cavern, the floor littered with skeletal remains. Luke grabbed a match. Sorry, fellas, time to move on. He dropped the match, and the oil-soaked bones ignited. Flames roared to life. The spirits howled, their forms flickering, breaking apart. One by one, they vanished, the whispers dying with them. Then, silence. Nick and Luke watched as the flames died down, leaving only smoldering embers where the bones had been. The mine was silent now. The oppressive weight in the air lifted. The spirits were gone. Luke dusted himself off. Well, that was a fun little trip to hell. Nick smirked. Yeah, nothing like getting chased by a bunch of dead miners to make your day interesting. They made their way out of the mine, stepping into the cool night air. Jake Turner was waiting near the entrance, eyes wide with nervous anticipation. Is it over? Luke nodded. They're gone. Your brother's not coming back. But at least now, neither will whatever took him. Jake swallowed hard, staring into the darkness of the mine. He always did say this town was cursed. He exhaled. Guess he wasn't wrong. Nick clapped him on the shoulder. Take it as a sign to get the hell out of here. As the brothers walked back to their car, Luke stretched, groaning. All right, next time, let's take a case that doesn't involve suffocating underground. Nick grinned, starting the engine. Fine, but if it's another haunted doll, you're handling it. Luke rolled his eyes. Deal. With that, the Impala their car, rumbled to life, disappearing down the dark road, heading toward the next mystery.